This is your Chapter 2 review. You should be watching this video and following along, doing the examples with me before you take your Chapter 2 test. It should help you. The test is laid out similar to this review, so if you understand this, then you should do fine on the test. Okay, number 1, it says, solve each equation for the specified variable. So it says a mixture of oil and water contains a total of 36 ounces. There are 9 ounces of oil in the mixture. What percent of the mixture is water? What percent is oil? So I was nice and gave you the formula here, percent equals part over whole. So there's 2 questions. Probably the number 1 thing that students mess up on this one is that they don't provide both answers for me. So my whole number is 36, and if I'm solving for oil, it says that 9 ounces of the 36 represent oil. So I'm going to solve for that first. X equals, that's the percent. My whole number is 36. My partial number is 9. So I'm solving for percent here, so I don't want to reduce fraction or anything like that. I need to actually simplify it. So in my calculator, I'm going to do 9 divided by 36, which is 0.25. Again, it's asking for percent, not a decimal, so I need to change that to be 25%. And then I need to label it. What does 25% represent? It represents oil. So that is answer 1. Answer 2, now I need to do a percentage of water. So again, we're solving for percent, so that's where my X is. My whole number is 36. Now, if 9 of them is oil, I need to do 36 minus 9, which is 27. So that's my new partial number, and then I need to divide. 27 divided by 36 is 0.75, which is 75%, and that represents water. I know that you could take 25% from 100, subtract, and get 75, but you need to show your work that you are working with the formula. Okay, number 2, it says A equals R over 2L. We are solving for L. So remember that L in parentheses represents the letter that we're solving for. Right now we've got a fraction. We can't work with fractions when we're solving for a specific variable. So I need to multiply both sides by the denominator. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2L. So right now I've got 2LA equals R. I could write the 2 and the L and the A all together because it represents multiplication. There doesn't need to be an addition or a subtraction sign or anything like that. It's important to remember what letter you're solving for, and that is L. So the 2, the L, and the A are all connected by multiplication. In order to undo multiplication, we have to divide. So I'm going to divide by 2A. So those cancel. I'm left with just L. And then I have R over 2A. So I need to think about, can I reduce that at all? The R and the A, those aren't the same letter. They can't be reduced. I have a 1 in front of the R and a 2 in front of the A. 1/2 doesn't reduce. So that means this is my final answer. L equals R over 2A. Okay, number 3, it says L equals A times the quantity 1 plus CT. So the C is in parentheses off to the right, which means that is the letter that we're solving for. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that A first. It's connected by multiplication, so I need to divide. So I've got L over A equals 1 plus CT. Again, I'm solving for C. I have something connected by addition, so I need to subtract. I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. And I'm solving for C here. C and the T are connected by multiplication. In order to undo multiplying, we divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by T. C is by itself, which is perfect. Now, I've got L over A minus 1 over T. That answer doesn't look great, so I'm going to simplify this and put the T up with the A and underneath of the 1. So I had got L over AT minus 1 over T. That would be a simplified answer. If you left it in the step before, technically that's not wrong, so I'd probably count it right on the test. Okay, number 4, we've got A equals 2HW plus 2LW plus 2LH. We are solving for L. So this problem looks familiar to the one that we did in the notes together. You've seen it on the homework as well, also probably on the Math Excel. This problem is important because it really shows if you understand the section or not. So I'm solving for L. I have two terms here that have L in them, so I need to definitely get rid of the one that has nothing to do with L. So I'm going to subtract 2HW from both sides. So on the left, I've got A minus 2HW. Now, if I'm trying to get L by itself, and there's two L's, well, I need to make that be just one L. So I'm going to, remember, reverse distribute and get that out front. The left-hand side hasn't changed yet. Now, the L in the parentheses are attached by multiplication. I need to divide. Remember, we keep it in parentheses because they're locked. So now I've just got L. And then on the left-hand side, I can't reduce that at all because the quantities in parentheses are attached. So I've got A minus 2HW over 2W plus 2H. That is definitely the hardest that it's going to get for that part. Okay, number 5, it says solve the following inequalities. Be sure to graph your solution. So I've got 3x minus 4 is less than or equal to 8, and negative 4x plus 1 is greater than or equal to negative 15. So I need to solve both of these separately. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. 3x less than or equal to 12. Divide by 3. X is less than or equal to 4. Bring down the word and, because I know I'm just talking about overlapping for this one. For this one, I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. Negative 4x greater than or equal to negative 16. Divide by negative 4. Remember, when we divide by a negative number, the sign needs to flip. Negative 16 divided by negative 4 is positive 4. So I have x is less than or equal to 4, and x is less than or equal to 4. So I'm going to go over to my graph, put 4 in the center. I'm going to use a closed dot because it's equal to. And then we're talking about numbers less than, so I'm going to shade to the left. Probably the number one thing that students forget here is that they need to graph their solution. So there's a number line there, you need to put something on it. I think these are my last two. Yep. We are solving absolute value equations here. So this is going back a few sections. It says solve each equation. Be sure to check your answers for extraneous solutions. So remember, sometimes we're going to do a check step, sometimes we aren't. It's up to you to remember which scenarios are which. So number 6, I have absolute value of x plus 5 equals 3x minus 7. First thing we need to do is make sure that the absolute value bars are by themselves. They are, so I can go ahead and set up my cases. Remember, case 1 always looks the same as the original. Case 2 is the left-hand side doesn't change. The signs on the right-hand side do. So negative 3x plus 7. So now I need to go ahead and solve. So I'm going to subtract x from both sides. 5 equals 2x minus 7. And then I need to add 7. 5 plus 7 is 12. And divide both sides by 2. X equals 6. Case 2, I'm going to start and I'm going to add 3x to both sides. X plus 3x is 4x. And I need to subtract 5 from both sides. 4x equals 2. Divide both sides by 4. X equals 1/2. Okay, so now we need to know, do I need to do a check step, or are those automatically my solutions? So remember, we do a check step when there's a variable on the right-hand side. So there's an x on the right-hand side, which means I definitely need to do my check step. Remember, when you do your check step, it goes back in the original problem with the absolute value bars there. So I'm going to plug in 6. 6 plus 5 equals 3 times 6 minus 7. Okay, 6 plus 5 is 11. And 3 times 6 is 18. Absolute value of 11 is 11. 18 minus 7 is 11. 11 equals 11, so x equals 6 is a solution. Check 2. Again, going back in the original problem, so I've got 1/2 plus 5 equals 3 times 1/2 minus 7. Okay, 1/2 plus 5 would be 11/2. And 3 times 1/2 would be 3/2. Absolute value of 11/2 would be 11/2. Remember, you can do all of this in your calculator. 3/2 minus 7 would be negative 11/2. Does 11/2 equal negative 11/2? No. So we cross x equals 1/2 off. That is not a solution for this absolute value equation. Okay, number 7. I have 3 times the absolute value of negative 8x plus 8 equals 80. So first step before we can go into our cases and checks and anything like that is we've got to get the absolute value bars by themselves. So get rid of addition first. I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. So now I've got 3 times the absolute value of negative 8x equals 72. Okay, now I've got that 3 out front. I cannot distribute the 3 in and make that negative 24x. You can't distribute into absolute value bars. So I need to instead divide both sides by 3. So I've got negative 8x equals 72 divided by 3 is 24. So this is my new problem that I'm going to base my two cases off of. So case 1 is going to be negative 8x equals 24. Case 2 is going to be negative 8x equals negative 24. So I'm going to go ahead and solve. So divide by negative 8. X equals negative 3. For case 2, I'm going to divide by negative 8. X equals positive 3. Now, do I need to do a check step? Well, there's no variables on the right-hand side. So no, I don't. X equals 3 and x equals negative 3 are both solutions to this absolute value equation. Okay, now, if you are stumped on any of these, you aren't getting them, you need to make sure that you reach out and ask for help before you take your Chapter 2 test.